Hey rockers, if you're far right at Grafikmetal, where rock and metal is celebrated with design in mind, today we are going to be ranking and reviewing all 17 of the studio album art covers for the band Megadeth as they come to an end, right? Not going to give you the whole details, did that on the previous one. If you haven't already, check out our episode where we rank our top 43 for the 43 years that Megadeth has been around in their incredible career. So today we're unpacking the art covers, right? We'll give you more insider information as far as the original intention, what the actual intention is, or our thoughts, along with just the perspective as far as, ranking them from worst to best. Obviously it's Megadeth, so there is a very sliding scale to say the least. So we're going to jump at it. The number 17th pick, or worst album art cover, might be a little bit of a surprise, but going to go with Endgame. Endgame was 2009. The artist was John Lorenzi, who we'll get to more. But essentially, what makes this such a bad album cover is the fact that, well, first and foremost is the concept, right? The farming of humans in like an endless storage containment of some sort of cattling, right? Whatever. It's been done so many freaking times. So right off the bat, the concept is just terrible because it's just overwritten. It's been done so many times. It's also just way too dark and moody to allow it to feel like anything. You can't gain any kind of details from it because there just isn't anything there. It's lacking any form of anything. The attention on the title is way too much. I don't care how powerful Endgame is. It doesn't matter. It's just way too much. It's too loud. There's also no Vic, although the Vic factor is, and by Vic I'm referring to Vic Rattlehead, the mascot, right, of Megadeth. So basically, there is a hypothetical potential of thinking that they all are Vics. Like, that is a possibility. And I think a big part of the reason why I'm thinking that is that even though it probably actually is barcodes on their head, what I am wondering is that if you look at an upcoming album cover, or in the case with, in real time a little bit later, with what is it, the sick, the dying, right, that one, there is the skullet, the thin skullet on the head, which is what the figures kind of depict. So there is a slim possibility that you could look at it this way. In any case, it's not the best. There is, so the actual back cover is just a stupid shot of Dave, but there is this floating around where sure, it's at least more interesting, but I still wouldn't grade it very high, even if this was the cover. I don't think it's very good, charcoal rendering of, it's just too dark. Everything is just too dark. It's just not very, very interesting. The only thing interesting is the cleverness of where the barcode is placed. That's about it. All right. So that's number 17, and I'm grading as an F. I think it's as bad as you can get for an album art cover. I've surprisingly over the years heard people actually liking it. I don't know what people are crazy. I mean, I understand like that in metal you get this obsession with dark and moody settings, and like basically there's nothing else to it. It's just dark and moody. I get it. It's the whole appeal of metal, but as a designer, this is a big part of the reason why I'm doing a channel. I'm tired of that crap. I think it's ridiculous. Like, great art should still be present anywhere, no matter what. Like, storytelling is storytelling, right? Be as effective as possible. So it's also just subjectively, I'm very anti this whole dark for the sake of dark setting. Anyways, all right, moving on. Number 16, Cryptic Writings. I don't think this is much of a shock. I think most people would probably rank this one pretty darn low. I don't think it's that surprising. This one, in this case, it's the first time and first of the 4 award-winning, as far as the artist being Hugh Syme, legendary, amazing artist, but this is not even remotely close to being his best. It's just downright awful. Now, conceptually, probably not even his fault. This is one of them that originally, I'll show you, originally, it was supposed to be something like this, not this specific one, but it's just an example of the concept. Where it's supposed to be basically, originally it's going to be called Needles and Pins, not Cryptic Writings. It's going to be called Needles and Pins, but it was a last second change. And therefore, originally, it was going to be something like this, where it was like a woman would be holding, or this doll that is what a queepy for, as far as the voodoo mechanism, as far as the control of someone or something, right? Except it was described as being that there would literally be, the doll would be there would be a syringe in the chest or something like that, has been described, and I guess it was just too much from the Capitol Records, which was still the record label at that time. They thought it was too much. I guess even Dave thought that he didn't like the idea of it being too voodoo-ishy, as far as a straight forward message to it. So he wanted something a lot more abstract. Hence then it became this. Which, in case if you're wondering, apparently it is the symbol for Vive, which it acts as like a warning in voodooism. It's like a symbol that acts as like a warning of what you can and can't do, is what the rumors are. Now, it's also been described that that's not entirely literal. It's more like it's a makeshift mix of different symbols, and it's kind of not really anything per se. So yeah, from the mysterious nature of symbolism, 100% is somewhat interesting. The problem is that the execution is just about as boring as you can possibly get. No, I remember back at the time, it was a shock, but not in a good way. I didn't even necessarily want to. I still bought it, but it was just man, this is just so, it's just uninteresting. It's just that simple. The back cover is probably the worst of the back covers of all of them. There's just nothing. It's just a painting just kind of scraped up and whatnot. Nothing, doesn't do anything. Like we already talked about, there is this poster version, which is really interesting. Obviously Vic is not in the cover, but there is, if you bought it, and if you were one of the first 5,000, then you do actually get this collectible card, which is pretty darn badass, and I think everybody would unanimously agree should have been the cover to begin with. I guess it's interesting to kind of, it's a specialty for those who actually bought it, so you can argue that, but at the end of the day, it probably should have been the cover art, period, end of discussion. So that is Cryptic Writings, number 16. All right, moving on. Number 15. This is going to be a surprise, but I'm going with United Abominations. And by the way, Cryptic Writings, I'm giving as an F as well. So now to United Abominations, which subjectively I find absolutely god-awful. I find it just horrendous. But this is a little bit of subjective with the styling. I'll give that as a disclaimer or a warning. This is just not the style that I go for. I just find it to be very old school, video game, rendering. It's crappy. And there are many people that like this. I've heard over the years people actually, this is their favorite. I think it's ridiculous. Personally, I'm just not, and I also like the specialty, factors. Fine, the fact that the original state of Vic is on the side of the building. You can kind of see here, kind of side in the building. Okay, fine. And then the use of United Nations again as a hark back to Peace Sells. Fine, whatever. But it doesn't save the fact that the rendering is awful and you can't even enjoy the most important thing, which is that, so the story goes, is that, so the artist is John Lorenzi, who obviously would end up doing a bunch of them. But this was actually how he kind of got the gig, right? He was one of the thousands of people that submitted for the reimagination of Vic Rattlehead from Dave wanted to do a contest basically, right? And so a whole bunch of people, submitted, and John was one of them, and John ended up winning. He actually did a few of them, and I'm not a fan of this at all. But I will say is that some of the other, so the back cover, that's kind of what I was getting at, is that the back cover at least shows what I'm referring to, which is that basically the interesting idea here was getting Vic in a human form. That's the selling point, right? But at least the back cover, at least you get to enjoy it. On the front cover, you do not at all. You can't. Part of it's because, the actual design, sure, but when it gets scaled down and put onto vinyl or CD or whatever, God forbid, cassette tape, it's too small, and so you can't enjoy it. It just looks like, bits. It's just not, there's just nothing to it. So some of the other ones, even the cropping, right? Because then the cropping is weirder, because then it crops off. You don't even really see the gun that he's holding. You don't see the, the pants, the legs. So you don't even really see it as a form of a human body in the actual, rendering cut, which is even more ridiculous because there's no reason for doing that. Going to some of the other versions that are out there that floating around, this one is a popular pick. I still don't like it. It's better, but I still don't like it. There's, kind of like the Four Horsemen type situation, but the one that I think should have won, another one of John's, is this one. This one to me is 100% by far, by a mile, the one it should have been. It feels it tells a story. You get a zoomed in cropping, so you get everything to it. It's the same thing as far as the hidden elements. You still get, the reference of Vic, on the screen, and the United, Nations elements. So you get the same thing. You just get way more bang for your buck as far as the visual references. And it's also it's energized. There's a feeling of it. The fact that the money's coming down, there's just so much energy. The human figure, hanging and swinging. There's energy to it, excitement. It feels like a sci-fi epic. It's beautiful. Love it. But with that said, the original is just, I just can't get past the fact that it's just horribly rendered. I don't like the small scale then format of it as a result of what it needs to be done. I give it a D. I'd give it a D plus. I'm not a big fan of it at all. Which then leads to number 14. So Megadeth, most controversial album, at least musically wise, is Risk. But what I will say from an art cover standpoint, at least it's simple, at least it's interesting, and it's just different, right? I do like the fact that, the Megadeth logo is imprinted in, the wood carving. So I think that is a nice touch, even though I know people always criticize the 90s with metal bands and getting away from even their original state logos. But nonetheless, I think it's at least interesting. As far as Vic goes, you could make a case that abstractly it is representative in the actual pieces of the metal, the subtraction of the items, if you collect them in a very super abstract way. I think it's highly of a stretch. But what you do, though, get is that Vic does appear, whether it's in the original version on the back cover, here on the actual mousetrap right here and printed on, or in the case with the reimagined version, you do get again the mousetrap back in on the actual front cover. This is my least favorite. I find is absolutely god awful. It becomes way too literal. It's just stupid. So in general, Risk is not great, just like most people think as far as the music, but at least it has negative space. It's simple. It was eye-catching, and really just the fact that you got a different version of the Megadeth logo. So for that reason, I give it slightly better, but I still give it a D+, so not a good grade at all. This is still really, really weak stuff here. Move on to number 13. You have... No pun intended, 13, all right? I find this to be also super mediocre. It is exciting that you at least get Vic, the background view of him, which is interesting. That's about it. That's really honestly all you can say. Obviously the clever use of the 13, the numeral inside it, kind of interesting, but again, it's just not enough to make this, at least it's not bad. It's just not interesting either at the same time. The back cover is somewhat interesting. It does made it a little bit complexing for this last album, number 17, because of the use of putting Vic, burying, and him being in a casket. So kind of interesting how that came to be. But that was at least interesting, which is why I think it elevates the conceptual factor a little bit more for number 13. But I still grade this as a C. It's just okay. Nothing else to say about it. It was also, by the way, done by John Lorenzi as well. So I believe this might have been his last one, I want to say. And then number 12, we're going with The World Needs a Hero. Now, this is Hugh Syme again. This would be the last time that he's worked with them. This one is the hardest to decide on the grade because objectively it is technically great as far as it checks off the boxes. It's interesting. It was during this time of doing this holographic 3D factor that was always kind of playful during the late 90s and early 90s. Tool would do this a lot, if you remember. And so yeah, it's interesting. But the problem is, and why I just can't grade it high, is because at the end of the day, it's a concept that feels like a straight rip-off of Alien, and I never could get past that. The other part is it makes no sense. Whether it's the title or just the concept, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's visually cool, but it doesn't match with the theme at all. So it just doesn't. So for that reason, I give it though a C+ because at least it is well done, right? Especially even actually being able to play with it. That's about it though. Moving on to number 11. We got The System Has Failed. This one is the only album art that Mike Learn did. Basically, again, conceptually great, where you have, basically Vic selling the non-guilty money, right? Like that is, at the podium. Like that is a cool concept and fits Megadeth and Vic very, very well. The problem is that it's never a good idea. Oh, and also the coloring. The coloring is also good too. As far as the gradation, I like that. But what I don't like is I never think it's a good idea to use actual people. In case you were wondering on the actual people, you got, let's see, President George W. Bush. You have ex-president, that is. You have also the Clintons. You have Bill and Hillary. They're like, Hillary's actually even saluting. You got Vice President Dick Cheney. He's actually holding the Plan B briefcase. You got National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice. You have Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. You got Attorney General John Ashcroft. But I don't think it's good to use people, like real life people. I think it would have been just at bare minimum better if they weren't actual real people. I know it doesn't then hit home the message, but it's just not a good idea because it's just great art really should not be based on the time. It should be able to extend past, and so I don't like when it's timestamps it and it creates not the right story long term. What I would have done differently is I think that what's great is using the actual bill itself, like the $100 bill, and replace it as it is with Vic instead of Benjamin Franklin. But just to be that's all you needed to do, and it would have been perfect. That's what I'm saying there. I also think the back cover is nothing to write home about, but it does lead to an interesting idea that I think would be really cool to play around with. Is just like a horse in a post-apocalyptic, underworld that's just rotten to the core. But then you have just this emptiness and this just horse that's riding, an emptiness. I think that could have been potentially interesting. So moving on. Or the grade I would give for System Has Failed, I give it a B-. It's not bad by any stretch. It's actually it was pretty darn solid. People do like it. It did fit well, but I just some nitpicky things to it. So moving on to number 10, we have The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, which is from artist Brent Elliott White. It's the first of the two of his. We'll get to. So this one is this is another case where it's just too dark. That's the big problem here. It's so cool to see Vic in a Western setting, just different vibe to him. Like the dead bodies all around him is cool, but then you just don't get to enjoy it because it's just too dark. That's the biggest knock on it, but it's just great to have a different environment being showcased. The back side is actually kind of cool because it does give you a grotesque version of Vic's hand, which is really interesting. In fact, I think that should have been the centerpiece. That even could have been the front cover right there alone. It's just doing something like that to kind of harken back to like Evil Dead or just zombie-ish kind of vibe to it in general, which I think would have been perfect and would have fit the title perfectly. But nonetheless, it sets the mood very well, so I give it a B, a solid B. On to number 9, you have Dystopia. Again, same thing. Still Brent Elliott White. There's a lot of similarities to them. And again, it does a great job capturing the environment and the scene and make you feel like set you right in with it. Obviously, turning Vic into a cyborg is fitting. Makes total sense. Some of the other details, right, like the Sydney Harbor is a hark back to Mad Max. You got 12 Monkeys kind of references. You got the holding of basically an android kind of figure cyborg that's like a representation of this the Statue of Liberty. You have drones. You have the samurai, right? Like there are some cool things, but I just think that stylistically, subjectively, I'm just not a big fan of Brent's style. That's the only nitpick on it. I also hate the lettering. I've always hated that font that's constantly always used for a dystopian kind of like future kind of setting. But in general, it's still solid. I also give this a B as well. The back cover is nothing right home. There's literally nothing to talk about. So then on to number 8. A little controversial, but I have Super Collider. Super Collider is I'm gonna get flack for this, but first of all, it is beautiful. Like as far as just it's eye candy, it's catchy, it grabs your attention, you want to hold on to it. It's instant, it's simple. The coloration is just beautiful. It also holds up so well as a counter to everything else that they've done. So that is amazing. Now there is the obvious like controversy too of the fact that apparently Vic is literally in there in the center of the ring. And by the way, this is basically just a modification of the original photo of the particle physics experiment of the compact Muon Sonoids silicon tracker. That's ultimately what it is. It is again another John Lorenzi artwork, but it's really just a modification. That's all. It's just editing, Photoshop ishy. There is a closer shot that somebody had done to actually kind of give you more of an actual representation of Vic inside than the circle there. But again, it's way unrealistic for any human eye to ever be able to pick this up, so that doesn't work. However, the saving grace is that the back cover is one of the strongest of their entire catalog. It's such a badass sci-fi kind of picture. It's just beautiful. It's also symbolic. It's just a cool representation of a better version of a cyborg, roboticized version of Vic. It's badass. I love it. So that's a combination of those things are why I give it a B+, actually. Again, I can't wait to hear people's response to that one, but it is what it is. Number 7, we got the most recent. You have the Blake Armstrong, a.k.a. Spaceboy comics, back again after a little while. This is the finale, right? This is the last one. And I gotta say, there's good things about it and bad things about it. Conceptually, fine with it. Got no problem with it basically representing essentially what? Like the whole, business is good, literally a payoff to the beginning, right? Or business is done, whichever you like, it works. I also think that as far as beautiful, as a contrast from everything else, I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get flack out because metal is going to be black and dark. BS, man. It's beautiful, white, it's simple, it's elegant, there's profound to it. Again, the business quality to it, it's awesome. I just wish they would have gone even further. And one of the things that I still have to give a knock on is that this is still not, I wish you were here. It's just not that kind of level. And a big part of it is because of the decision of it being an illustration. I know that, Blake tends to do illustrations, and I'm not even knocking on the illustration quality itself, although it does kind of come off as a little bit renderishy just by nature of whenever you do a lot of white, and you do a drawing, it's just gonna happen. There's nothing to get around it. Obviously the flames are a nice touch, and the way it's visualized is very, very strong. But nonetheless, it's just not. It just doesn't hold up on the same level of something like I Wish You Were Here. But with that said, what I did start to think about is that the background, which again just pays off the kind of finale element to it, but I actually think that this should have been the front cover. And I think it would have been even cooler to have no Megadeth logo. In fact, the only reference point is just the chain on the earpiece, and that's the only reference of knowing, and of course the skeleton, is being Vic and therefore Megadeth. I think that actually would have been even more profound and interesting. You obviously have some of the interesting ideas as far as tipping point, kind of cool, and of course the big FU with I don't care. It's playful, it's interesting. That's the one the nice thing about all these illustrations that Blake did. So it's good. Not knocking on it too hard. It's B plus. Because, look, it's hard to do the finale. Finales are always hard. But I do love the willingness to go all white and the simplification of it. I do have to give major props for that. On to number 6. We have So Far, So Good, So What? Basically, it was originally going to be set in the World of Fire, hence why the theme of it. This one is basically it's a composition. There's still this day, no one has any idea who actually worked on it. My guess is that it was an intern or some kind of lackey at Capitol Records. It's been a mystery why Hugh didn't work on it. We don't know, but he was a busy guy, especially at that time. So maybe he was just simply too busy. Maybe it was a last second kind of factor, or who knows. But it is a composition, so it's composing a lot of things. You did have like a mannequin that acts as basically Vic with the mask. And I think but really what sells is the details. The use of the typography, the So Far So Good, the way it's handled. You have the VHS stopping and then taking a photograph, so it's got like that kind of like, air feeling to it, which is, I think, the huge selling point of this. You also have the sweetness of the earth in the background instead of the moon, so then it adds all these other stories to it, and so because of that, it's just really, really cool. You also have, during that era, the hilarious farting on the cemetery. You also have, Nowhere Mr. Nice Guy, which is kind of interesting. Kind of feels like Blood Incantations kind of vibe to it. So that's, I give it a B plus. It's good. It's very, very, very good. On to number 5. We have Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? Once you get past the iconic nature of it and the badass theme, and just the coloration, which is amazing. Like, that's really my favorite aspect, is the coloration is just beautiful. The whole thing is really cool. I even like the one way you can barely see as far as the sign coming out. It's very, very well done. It's awesome. It's badass, iconic. Obviously, the drawing representation of this is Hugh Syme, right? Amazing. It's the best. It's what we most associate Vic Rattlehead as, is this version in particular. It's amazing, but if I'm being nitpicky, I think that there are there are ways it could have been potentially better. Most notably, maybe it's a little bit more zoomed in cropping version, so this way, I don't know. It's just there are some things you kind of gotta wonder, but again, this is still iconic for a reason. It is an A. I give it an A minus. It's just hard not to like it. There's nothing else to really say about the background. Was nothing to write home. It's just a band shot. So on to number 4 is the debut, right? My business, Killing Is My Business. Business is good. Obviously, the story goes is that Capitol Records end up losing the original sketching that Dave had done. Dave originally did this, sketch version, which is amazing. This is a big part of the reason why I have it so high, is his decision to do this in the first place, to come up with Vic, Rattlehead, which, in case if you're wondering, for those who don't know, even though I think everybody knows, basically Vic equals victim. And then Rattlehead is coming from the name that his mom would used to yell at him whenever he was headbanging, he's going to, rattle something. That's where the name came from. And then obviously it basically represents the 3 monkeys. It's the, see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, right? That's the symbolism. Also for just censorship in general, right, is another way of looking at it. But this is just really, really badass. And if you look at some of the other, I mean, obviously the revisited version, and the, you know, if you look at even some of the, you know, some people's renderings and whatnot, like, this could have been iconic and legendary. And if you really, really think about it, pretty damn badass for a debut in 1985. Like, this is really, really, really kind of badass. So I have to give it major, major props. Obviously, Capital One is cheesy as hell, but you do get the nostalgic nature of the interesting old, you know, type, which is a throwback. The fact that it's the only time that it's not the iconic one. Obviously, it was use of, you know, like tin foil and like an old, you know, plastic skull, and then some modifications, you know, the metal and again tin foil and the chains. But I don't know, I still think it's kind of funny and interesting, and it's haha, right? So there's also, if you remember the introduction of Rattlehead, basically it comes from the lyrics of The Skull Beneath the Skull, right? Obviously, Rattlehead, the song itself, but in The Skull Beneath the Skin, you have prepare the patient's scalp to peel away, metal caps his ears, he'll hear not what we say, he'll solid steel visor riveted across his eyes, iron staples close his jaws, so no one hears his cries. That's basically it in a nutshell. So very cool. I still give it an A-. I think overall, conceptually, it's just a badass introduction into it. It's just really cool to have a mascot and be the foresight to do so, because that would be critical, because otherwise Megadeth's branding is very otherwise, right? So moving on to number 3, Rust in Peace. Legendary, right? These next 3, you can't go wrong with any of them. You really can't. You put them in any order you want to. This one comes with, it's a little bit better than Peace Sells of the Hue illustrations, because this one comes a little bit more with the storytelling. I love the fact, you know, the contrast between the gold on the blue, the hue of the blue. You have 7 figures, right? You have the 5 in the background, then you have, of course, Vic, and then the alien. So you have a lot of imagination, you run with it. And then, of course, the beauty of the holding of the gem, the emerald, the brightness of it, also the symbolism that comes with the whole thing. It's a work of art. It's beautiful. You can't really say anything else about it. Also, the other, the singles at that time, Holy Wars, and then also Hangar 18 were also beautiful, amazing. They themselves could have been covers if you wanted to. All of that whole package is just remarkable. It's just incredible. On to number 2, you have Euthanasia, right? Euthanasia is one of the most legendary, badass art covers in music history. Not even metal, just music history. This is iconic because you have the hilarious and yet evil nature of the euthanasia, right? As far as the clothesline of a woman, that's clothesline in this case, though, the babies. I mean, how badass can you get? But the details. You got the old lady and what she's wearing. You got the pink, slippers. You have, the head, set, the basket, the freaking emptiness of the basket. Just, it's beautiful. You have the sky, right? The purple hue of the darkness of the sky with the richness of the green nature. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. My only knock on it is just the fact that I do wonder if zooming in, cropping in, or just simply one baby, clothesline would have been actually stronger. Nitpick, but just saying. You also get probably arguably the most kick-ass version of Vic, or as I call it, Dark Vader Vic, and the mysterious nature of the fact that the levitating baby, which I actually love. I know people have nitpicked it. I love it. These are the little details that make good art legendary and iconic. So the whole package is just remarkable, beautiful, beautiful, A all the way, 100%. But number 1, got to go with Countdown Extinction. Now, Countdown Extinction comes with a few factors, but most notably is piggybacking what I just said. This one is simpler. There's actually just a few objects. You have the, the grail metal flooring. Then you have the cement, coldness of the background. You have this small little narrow window, which peeking through, you can see the beauty of a blue sky. You have the tiny little sink and the little bucket. You have then the plate with the skulls, and then of course the figure. That's it. A lot of negative space to allow each item to really shine and just bring all its glory. It's also quick. Your eye just can't look away from this. From the day you see it till now, it is legendary for a reason. But the thing that is really the selling point is the decision to make the figure levitating or floating or being sent up, however which way you want to. There is so much storytelling and ability to use your imagination that makes this so freaking strong. It's just badass. But even further is the Vic factor. So, of the imaginations I've had, I've always, for a long time, always thought that this is a representation of Vic before becoming Rattlehead. I've always thought that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the assumption, just the logical nature, because Vic had always been there up to this point, and then you have this. It's just badass. You also have the nature of the head being pushed up, and then the motion of the mouth and everything. It's just amazing. But the other reason why for the reference, too, is that if you look at the back cover, which is also iconic, right? The abacus, the old counting tool that you get, obviously, Vic in all his glory, again with another cloak, and you get the skulls, right, as the numbering system. But those skulls are the exact same skulls as on the plate, which is what I think the other reference point to why I think there is something to be said about the story, that this actually is basically the human state of Vic before he becomes Vic Rattlehead. And I think that the pairing of the two, the front and the back cover, kind of seals it. Regardless, it's just a work of art, and I give it an A+. I give it as high of a grade as you possibly can get. And there you go. That's my ranking of all 17 of the art covers for Megadeth. I want to hear from you. What is your ranking? Which ones do you think should have been higher or lower? What were your other hidden factors you found, secretly in the artwork? Stay tuned, because the next we're going to be doing the albums, ranking the albums from a musical standpoint. So stay tuned, subscribe, all that jazz. Can't wait to see your comments. Can't wait to continue this and put an ending. Business is done. To Megadeth and their incredible career. Until then, I'm Veer Von Wright. You've been watching Grafikmetal. Cheers and keep on rocking.